So I wanted to talk about Venus in Virgo. Venus just entered the sign of sidereal Virgo on October the 8th of 2025. So I know this is a little late, but I thought there is still a lot of time. As Venus begins its transit through the sign of Virgo, uh, it kind of helps us to wear this thinking cap or the lens of discernment and commitment to what we truly value, because Venus is all about value, and now is the time for us to kind of refine our practices or kind of invest in structures that kind of have a lasting meaning. On that note, I would like to kind of mention that the doors to my founders circle diploma program is slowly closing as we are inching to November, and and this is a very detailed course. It's very structured and also a practical path to understand and study Jyotisha, which is basically designed for those who are primarily ready to kind of just go beyond casual astrology and get into some serious study. So this will be the final group ever at the founders price of $680, after which from spring of 2026 the price or the investment for this course will substantially increase, and I'm looking at $1,200 or something like that. The course begins on the November 11th of 2025, and I look forward to welcoming you if you're interested in this course, and details about the course are always there on the description page. So now let's talk about Venus in Virgo itself. And Venus is the planet of love, theater, art, entertainment, pleasure, value, and every good thing that we want to associate with in our lives. The things that we cherish and things that we think kind of add value or bring joy to our everyday life. This is associated with Venus. But Venus in Virgo is in her sign of debilitation, and it's almost like Venus is stripped of her ease and comfort, forced to function through the lens of precision, rational analysis, or some kind of an order which doesn't really flow well with Venus. It kind of might sound challenging, but debilitation doesn't mean it is fully weak. But there is a role that Venus performs when it's in Virgo, and that is called refinement, right? So it is where the superficial things fall, and only the essential basically remains. So when Venus enters Virgo, it doesn't bring roses and poetry. I mean, it could be, but it's not necessarily the foremost thing that Venus indicates when it is placed in Virgo. It kind of reflects that, where shows us where love has become routine, where pleasure has kind of turned mechanical. Just because we are in a relationship, we need to have this routine of love and pleasure, which basically is mechanical, and where our and that is where things start losing its value, right? So in terms of in being in alignment with how we live. So that's a little bit of a gray area that we're going to explore with Venus in Virgo. So ask questions to yourself like what is truly worth my time and energy or devotion or commitment, and what needs to be refined. I think with Venus it's about kind of refining, and debility is also about release. Like, it's not because it's bad, but it's because it doesn't serve anymore in our lives, and doesn't fit the direction that we are taking. So there is this story which I've always loved from ancient India, which is kind of said basically everywhere in the temple circles. Uh, it's said that a temple sculptor would spend days just sitting in front of a stone block, uh, and he wouldn't touch or do anything right away when he sees the stone block, but instead he would just watch it, study the grains of the stone block or weight or texture that it presents, and also its imperfections. Like, anything that comes from nature is basically imperfect, and but the perfection lies beneath, and we need to kind of see through and penetrate And that's what Venus says. Like when asked why to the sculpture, he would basically say that the divine is already hidden, and and uh, and and he would say that his job is not to create, but just to kind of remove what is not needed, and the stone would take its form, which eventually is called as whatever you may want to call, like God or whichever God you like, and that is basically Venus in Virgo. So it's not about adding more beauty. Venus naturally indicates beauty, but it is about uncovering the beauty that already exists by removing what doesn't, or whatever what hides the beauty. So we need to remove that. So that is basically, Venus in Virgo, and the idea of debility. So this basically is refinement, and refinement always comes through some form of effort, and also discipline, and not a small degree of humility, and that kind of takes us to another example, real life example, where I'm sure a lot of people know about the Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien's greatest creation, and also Hobbit. And this was kind of made into a movie by someone called Peter Jackson. And Peter Jackson is the director of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogies. And he has Venus in Virgo, sidereal zodiac, Venus in Virgo. And if you think about it, his career basically kind of perfectly mirrors this placement, and he took something, it was there in the book, but he kind of created something in his mind as forms or whatever it is, and he made a perfect depiction of an imagined world, and gave it shape, texture, and life. And who doesn't like or love Lord of the Rings? So he spent years obsessing over each and every detail, be it design of the sword, or the house of the hobbit, the hobbit hole, or the dialect of language, basically inventing a new language and the dialect, and even the texture of the grass in the Shire, and what basically looked beautiful and also effortless on the screen, was basically a result of absolute meticulousness, or indicating painstaking craft, and that's Venus in Virgo, devotion to detail, and the love expressed through precision. So how about this love expressed through precision? So it's the understanding that creation is not just about inspiration, but also about refinement, or about caring enough to shape something that doesn't have a shape, or something that hasn't become real for us to tangibly see. And in our lives, I think Venus in Virgo brings a similar theme, and this is the period where the universe is going to invite us to refine how we love, or how we relate, and how we create. Right. So relationships now require more practicality than ever. Venus is not going to like when it's in Virgo, but it's going to be a great learning lesson for every one of us. And this is not the time for making grand promises. Just because I spoke about Lord of the Rings, it doesn't indicate grandeur, but it's not about promises, or it's not about dramatic emotions, but it is time for sincerity and honesty. Right. So now is the time to ask, like, what is sustainable, and what is real. Right. What is real, or what is honest? What is most valuable, or where our time is most valuable. Right. So some relationships will strengthen as they adapt to the realistic expectations. Some relationships might not have that the touch of reality, and they would be living in some kind of a fantasy filled world with unrealistic expectations. But with Venus in Virgo, I think there will be an opportunity for people to kind of bring in this dosage of reality, and be aligned more to realism than idealism, because and that is okay. There is no need to be kind of ideal. There is ideal is just the ideal which exists in an abstract manner, and it's not very easy to kind of bring in our everyday life. But bringing realism into our life is much more easier, and we will be in line with whatever the cosmos indicates, and whatever the changes we have to go through as human beings on part of this human experience. And that's very much okay, and that is practical. So Venus in Virgo basically teaches that sometimes it has to end, and endings are also kind of part of refinement, right? So an end is not a failure. So the it's simply the space we need to give away for something else to take shape. So, and remember that Saturn is opposing Venus at this point. So and remember, Saturn is retrograde currently in sign of Pisces, and it's one of the aspects that kind of demands maturity with Venus in Virgo opposing Saturn in Pisces. And Venus seeks kind of affection and beauty, but Saturn demands truth, structure, and hardcore reality. So together, this opposition of Venus and Saturn, like both these planets, reflect that love without boundaries kind of tend to dissolve. Right? This is not limited to romantic relationships or entanglements, but this basically is applicable to every relationship, and our relationship to everything that we value. Like I am doing this video, and my relationship with this video and the value that I put with this particular video is also kind of included in this, and the commitment, the self-care, the relationship that we have with our own inner self. So everything is very important, and everything we value kind of takes a realistic shape during this period. And Saturn in Pisces kind of asks us to surrender, which I mentioned in my eclipse video, like surrendering. And while Venus in Virgo kind of helps rebuild what is real, right? So there is one set of Venusian realities that are maybe the skin is now really kind of changing to become something far more realistic that's going to help us in the long run. And Venus is currently, as I'm talking, Venus is at the 5th or 6th degree of Virgo, which is basically the degree of the September solar eclipse. A very potent point for a lot of us last month. And Venus is kind of crossing the same degree at this point, and eclipse points always kind of awaken unfinished stories, right? And if something significant happened to you during that particular point in time, I think, especially in relationships or even creative pursuits, this could be one of those moments where themes of those would resurface. And this is not necessarily to kind of haunt you or challenge you, but it's just to kind of help you see differently, or help you understand the discernment with that you need at this point in your own life. And Venus in Virgo kind of brings the body into the focus. Like it's a reminder that caring for yourself is not indulgence, it is maintenance. So and therefore health becomes an important theme. So if you've been postponing checkups, or if you've been having some pressing health challenges that you've been ignoring, now is the time for you to kind of act upon it, because when the body screams, you need to answer, and you need to kind of pacify that. You don't just kind of push it forward, and that's not necessarily a good thing. This is not an advice, but this is from a personal experience, and I've done that. And I put myself, I deprioritized myself and put myself at the last every time while taking care of everything else. And I learned very painfully that body keeps the score. There is a book called Body Keeps the Score, and if you want to check it out, I think I really welcome you or encourage you to check that book out, and I might actually give that link on the description page. So during this transit, please take care of yourself, and eat mindfully and rest abundantly without any guilt. And and return to routines or habits that kind of support you or help you sustain your life in a better way. Moving on, creative professions are going to flourish. So, and this is very interesting, right? Venus in Virgo is fallen, and you might wonder, like, how come Venus would support creative or art-related professions? But you know, Venus is the sign of refinement and discernment and analysis and precision. So if you're an artist, or if you're a writer, or if you're a craftsman, this is your time to kind of refine, because Venus enhances precision. Precision. It kind of sharpens technique and helps us see the unseen, right? Sculpture, embroidery, design, even editing, like whatever it is that kind of requires attention to smallest details, that can, all these things can really flourish now. Again, remember Peter Jackson, the magic wasn't just his imagination alone. It was in the way he shaped that imagination into something tangible, or something that we can see, and that is really the heart of Venus in Virgo. Let's talk a little bit about nakshatras, and if you're interested, I'm kind of starting a nakshatras course, 5-week experiential nakshatras course next year. I've given a tentative date, but it might be here and there. But it's a very detailed course, and I kind of went to a lot of length and breadth to provide very authentic material, where I've derived information directly from the Rig Veda, which will make it worthwhile, because you'll find information that you don't find anywhere else. And this is also part of my 1-year diploma program, if you want to take the entire course on Jyotisha. So it's up to you. But talking about nakshatras, like Venus travels this Virgo through 3 nakshatras: Uttara Falguni, Hasta, and Chitra, and together they all kind of narrate a story that we can understand what Venus's transit through Virgo means. So Uttara Falguni is ruled by Aryaman, and Aryaman is the god of the noble contracts, right? So we basically kind of rebuild that's been strained, and this is where relationships can be repaired through honesty, or mutual respect, or kind of communication, right? So the symbol of Uttara Falguni is the 2 legs of the cart, the 2 front legs of the cart, right? So, and this is the symbolism of initiative, right? So it's the beginning of taking an effort, or if it's the willingness to kind of reach out and course correct. So and then Venus enters Hasta somewhere around October the 17th, and then Hasta, the symbol of Hasta is hand. This exactly is the shape of Venus in Hasta, and it's ruled by Savita, or the sun god, so the solar deity. So, which represents action. So hand is synonymous with action, right? Or giving shape to something that doesn't have. So initiatives, creation, craft, all this is represented by hand. So whatever we initiated in the initial part of the month when Venus entered into Virgo after October the 8th, while it was in Uttara Falguni Nakshatra, will kind of start taking shape. And and if you kind of bring this idea into relationships, our actions will start kind of it will start having visible results. So in creativity, our ideas will take some kind of form. And finally, when Venus moves into Chitra, which is ruled by Twastar, the celestial architect, or the divine architect. So whatever we have worked on over the past 22 days will suddenly kind of take shape. Initially it would take shape, but now it would kind of gain structure with which we can move forward convincingly, and that is Venus in Chitra. So imagine there is this 3 phase. One is kind of trying to play in our mind and then kind of put those ideas into action, and then seeing the structures getting built right in front of us in terms of what we are working, and that is Venus in Virgo. There is some hard work to be done, but I think it's a very necessary journey for us in terms of initiation, manifestation, and also consolidation. So these phases prepare us to welcome Venus in Libra, where balance and harmony return. Because, but only after the work that we do, like the work of refinement that's been done. So basically, if you're in a space where relationships feel uncertain, or where creativity feels slow, I think you should not feel intimidated or demotivated, or you don't lose heart over it. But this is the progress where you are basically sitting before the stone, looking at the grain and trying to kind of get an idea of the textures, and studying the form that is going to emerge out of this particular stone, as the sculpture did. So imagine yourself as a sculpture during this period, and trust that what kind of looks unfinished is actually kind of forming behind the scenes, and what looks like an ending may only be clearance, or sometimes a new path that we need to take, and what feels like a limitation uh, may end up being a refinement. So as Venus enters Virgo, just commit to refinement and this three process. Have these ideas, try to manifest those ideas, and then look forward to the consolidation. And enjoy Venus in Virgo. And if you're looking for personal consultations, I'm always open, and you can check out my website, and all the links will be available on the description page. And I'll see you in another video.